So now you're driving around Asheboro, North Carolina. Shout out. And you drive by this building.
Yeah.
And you see a trailer sitting out. And by the way, it's a big building.
Yeah.
It's a huge building.
Yeah.
But it's very nondescript.
Yeah. It's nondescript. It's got this trailer with it, Texas jeans. And just in terms of timeline here, I had seen this building during the deal making for that first factory. I had seen it. And
you mean driven by it?
Yeah,
just looked at it.
Yeah. And actually, I think we tried to get in, but we weren't able to. Like the guy there was just not interested in talking to us or anything. So it was kind of a blip, right? It was like what's that? And it kind of a blip. Tried to get in, couldn't get in, whatever. So it came back up, and I had remembered. Oh, there's this thing. So drove back by it, called Jason. Do you know who owns this? Do you have the contact information? Is there any way we can talk? And, Jason's like, yeah, I know who it is. Basically like, good luck. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? With this whole thing. And I said, well, we're making jeans in Maine. We're making jeans in North Carolina. Things are working. But at the pace we're selling, right? At the pace of product that we're selling, because we're a company that literally we take an order in and we manufacture the thing. So we're selling, 1,000 pairs a week right now on top of the 10,000 in back order. So we're now pushed out from Black Friday. We're pushed out for 5 months, which is completely unacceptable. It's completely unacceptable in this world of getting shit from Amazon dropped in by a drone, right? Like an hour after you order it. So it just was like, I kind of looked at the numbers and the run rate of what we were selling, and I'm like,
it just doesn't work.
This ain't happening.
This just doesn't work.
You remember that phone call?
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're not going to be able to ever produce what we need to produce at this run rate with this kind of growth trajectory. So Jason connected me with the son of the owner. The son of the owner connected me with the owner. Again, not for sale. He entertained me. He entertained me in this old 1970s boardroom that had a distinct smell to it. Him and his wife, Dolores. And I could tell this dude was hard. Like just the way he carried himself, the way he looked at me, the way he interacted. He even told me, if I was your age, I would kick your ass. He said, I would kick your ass, and I'd kick your ass in business. You couldn't touch me. You can't compete with me. You don't know what I know. What I've done out in this plant, I went out in the plant. He actually did bring me out in the plant for a couple minutes. And I asked the son if I could shoot photos, and he's like, yeah, go ahead. And then he saw me shooting photos, and he said to Jason, he goes, if I see that dude shoot another photo, I'm going to kneecap him right here. I mean, that's the type of dude we're dealing with.
Yeah. Just to put this in a little bit of perspective. So this guy, how long had he been in this business for?
50 years.
So if you don't know this, this is the old school way. And back in the day, well, look at the history. 50 years. This is when you had the union issues. This is when you anti-union issues. This is when you had massive influence from organized crime in the textile industry. This is when you had intense competition in America, because this is before everything's overseas. So now you've got the most intense competition. And this guy, you want to talk about a survivor and a thriver. This is a guy that dominated for 50 years and worked. And if you were not a badass, you weren't going to make it. It wasn't going to happen. And if you weren't a badass, you were going to get your ass kicked. And that's what he did. He went around. And that's why he was, the last standing wash house, the last denim plant from the golden age of textiles in America. This is the guy, the last standing guy.
100%.
Right?
That's it. The last one. I mean, you're talking about a plant that's 170,000 square feet with this wash house now a storage room, right? With these big 500-pound washing machines that tip forward to dump out, the wash jeans
like
or whatever.
A dump truck, bro.
That haven't been, like a dump truck that haven't been running in years.
The washing machines don't weigh 500 pounds. They wash 500 pounds. Yeah. A quarter ton worth of jeans.
Yeah, they're 9 feet tall. They're, I don't know how many thousands of pounds. They're massive, massive machines. But, you walk into this place and you could just tell it's like, like World War II, post-World War II, East Germany, Berlin. Like everything's just so closed and dark and dank. And it just had it had a survivor type of feeling. Like this thing exists out of sheer survival. Like it shouldn't exist. It shouldn't be here. It should have been gutted and turned into something else a long time ago. And this guy was not willing to let it go.
Just force of will.
Yeah, just a sheer force of will.
So how did you navigate the conversation to go from this isn't for sale, and if you don't put your camera away, I'm going to kneecap you right here. How do you transition from that to how do you even get him to open his mind a little bit?
Well, let's just say that it didn't start off great. And ultimately it ended up good, but the ebbs and flows of our conversations and what transpired during this time was not only the strangest negotiation I've ever been part of, but even more of one of the more heartfelt too. You know what I mean? It was a hard negotiation. It was hard to talk to him. It was hard to find common ground because of his passion and our passion for what we're doing. I think ultimately he saw something that he was willing to believe in, a spark of something. And not to get ahead of myself here, but the first time he walked in, I had Jason with me. And Wally walks in, and he's got his kind of the brows over his eyes, and he kind of walks in, and his wife's behind him, and Jason's like, "What up, old timer?" And Wally looked at Jason, and you could tell they probably had competed in the past, or whatever. You got two strong Southern men, right? And Wally said something smart to Jason, like, "I'll kick your ass," or something like that. I was just like, I literally put my head in my hand going, "Oh man, how is this going to go?" What it boiled down to was he's in bad health. And right now, Wally he's actually not doing good. I actually wanted to interview him for the documentary we've been working on. And I've asked 3 times. I've talked to him. I've talked to his wife. And at this point, I'm probably annoying about it. But he won't do it. And he said to me, because I remember things a certain way and somebody else remembers them another way. And I can respect that. But some of the stories he told me, which I can't share, I can share some of them, but are unbelievable. Straight out of a movie, with organized crime and all that stuff. But ultimately, we spent 20 hours over the course of a few weeks in that boardroom talking and negotiating. He started the negotiation with, "You are not seeing my books. You are not seeing my financials. If you want to get this thing done," he's like, "you're going to, number one, have to tell me why, because I got somebody ready to stroke me a check right now. And that's the person I'm going to sell it to." That's how the negotiation started.
There were times where this wasn't happening.
Oh,
there were, let me first start off by saying this. When you first called me about what it was, what the opportunity was, I was like, "Oh, this is next level." When you're talking about an incredible staff of people that have an incredible skill set, an incredible amount of machinery, a space that's 170,000 square feet, a space that's grandfathered as far as like a wash house. You can't build a wash house like that. You can't do it anymore. There are things that are once in a lifetime.
Yes.
This was a once in a lifetime opportunity. So I was, and of course you're telling me, "Hey man, the jeans thing that we're doing right now, we are not going to be able to do this." And then all of a sudden, here comes like a ray of light, right? Like a lifeboat,
like divine intervention.
Yeah, you're in the ocean. You're alive, but you're in the ocean.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, a lifeboat comes, and this thing was like a lifeboat. And so I'm super stoked. And you can always make deals happen, right? You can always make deals happen. You can always figure out a way. And my attitude is always, well, we'll figure out a way to make a deal. We'll make a deal. And there was some times in this where we weren't making a deal, where it wasn't happening, where I just thought, yeah, man, what are we going to do now? I was in plan B, C, D, because you'd say, hey, let me debrief you on what just happened today. And I'd be like, okay. The deal fell apart.
Completely. Multiple times.
And then it would come back together.
Yep.
And then it would fall apart. But it wasn't like, it didn't seem like those deals falling apart were any negotiation. It seemed like it just died. Like, it wasn't like, oh, he's hardballing us, or he's going to hold a little bit, or we got to come back with a different number. It was like, no, you know what? I'm actually just not selling this to you anymore.
Yeah, he honestly didn't care about what we were going to pay for it. It didn't really have anything to do with money. He wanted someone tough. That wasn't me, by the way. He wanted someone tough who could come in there and demand respect, that knew how to interact with people, that understood the business, that could carry on his legacy. And after 20 hours of negotiation, that wasn't me. And I'll share with you in a second who it was. At that table, that conference table, and flying back and forth and having these meetings, I did learn something very important about negotiation. In negotiation with someone who is so passionate about something that they've been building for 50 years. Remember, this guy had 7 plants around North Carolina. He made it through the exportation of our jobs and machinery and the abandoned communities. He survived it. And the other thing is this guy, I don't know, he's the last of his kind. I think is what it boils down to. And he doesn't really believe that anyone can do what he does. You ever met somebody like that? Mm-hmm. There is nobody alive that can do what I do. He made the jeans for Levi's. He made the jeans for Wrangler. He made the jeans for Calvin Klein. On one case he shared with me, he got a contract for Calvin Klein, and a guy showed up in his office unannounced. His secretary comes to see him. Hey, there's somebody here to see you. And he's like, okay. And the guy comes in his office and he puts 2 plane tickets on his desk, tells him, where, I know where you live. I know, I know everything about you. Basically, you're coming with me. And on the other end of those tickets was a guy named Whitey Bulger. Wally's like, hold on a second. Tells the guy to chill out for a second, gets on the phone, calls a friend of his up in New York City saying, hey, I got a guy here named Whitey Bulger. He's like, he's asking me to pay money. He's like, wait, Wally, hold on. Who? He's like, Whitey Bulger. He goes, who are you making jeans for? He says, Calvin Klein. He goes, I'll call you back in 15 minutes. Come to find out, his friend had the connections. I don't even know if I should be sharing this shit, bro. His friend had the connections to get to the top. And Whitey, basically, he gets a phone call back. And they're like, is Mr. Bulger there? Puts him on the phone with Mr. Bulger. And he said, I just heard the guy go, yep, got it. Okay. Puts the phone down and leaves. He wasn't paying for every pair of jeans that he was making.
He wasn't given the cut.
He didn't know he was supposed to be given the cut. It had never filtered down to him. So he started receiving checks with the cut taken out for the product. there was a lot of stories like this. There were some stories that he was telling me. And I think the point is he wanted me to know how tough he was. You know, here's a guy who's at end of life. You know, and it's actually kind of sad too. He's at end of life. He's built this empire. He's invested everything in this. He's the best in the world at it. He's the best in the world at making denim blue jeans. And he's staring at death. We spent a week negotiating, 2 weeks negotiating, and then it's just radio silence. There's no more conversation. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I think the deal's done, man. I think it's dead. There's no more conversation.
There was another entity
that wanted to purchase
to buy it, that had a ton of money,
Yep.
you know, backed by massive hundreds of millions of dollars, and they were ready to roll in there.
I finally get on the phone with his wife, Dolores, got her cell phone number. She sounds pretty wound up. You know, hey, well, he's in the hospital, you know, why don't you come down next week? So I go back down. I'm sitting in the boardroom. Wally comes in and he sits down. You know, and he's looking rough, and he's welling up. You know what I mean? He's welling up in his eyes, and I'm like, what's going on? And he basically said, nobody knows this. I haven't even shared it with my son, but he had a heart attack and he died. Called, I guess his wife called. They brought him back to life, got him back. And they actually said, there is no way you should be alive right now. You must have more to do. And that was the defining moment where he opened up back for negotiation, where he was staring death in the face, and then he dies. He gets brought back to life. And now I'm sitting in a board with him, and I have my wife next to me, Amanda. And I knew bringing her down was going to be important, because him and his wife have been doing this thing, and they've been a unit. You know, they're like-minded, in one plays off the other one, and similar to the way Amanda is and I am. And it was then that he decided that we had what it took, that I didn't have what it took, but that she had what it took. Because he asked me to bring her down. I said, Amanda, I want to bring you down to North Carolina. Listen, Wally's asking to meet you. She's like, why do I need to go? She's like, this is your thing. This is what you do. I said, I don't know. I said, he wants to meet you. And I called him back. Yeah, I'm going to be coming down. He's like, you're going to bring Amanda, right? And I'm like, yes, I'm going to bring Amanda. He stared at me across the table. And he said to me, he's like, you can't do this. He goes, I don't trust you can do it. He goes, but she can. I watch the way she moves. I watch the way she walks. I watch the way she interacts. I said, she can make this happen. And I wouldn't do a deal with you, but I'll do a deal with her. And I said, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right, man.
I know, man. I agree with Wally, bro.
100%. It's like, you're right. And, you know, and that was the turning point, man. The guy died, got brought back to life. He saw his legacy in front of him. He saw, you know, a family, and I'm talking about a family. He's of course, the Jocko thing came into play because he had a special forces guy that lives next door to him who told him all about you. So you've got people who are hungry to bring back manufacturing in America. And it was at that point that he believed that we could carry on his legacy and things move forward. And bro, like, even his belief that it could move forward, that we could handle it, was still just the beginning of all the bullshit that we had to go through to make the deal happen.